The next accessory organ is the gallbladder, which you see here in green, which is really just a storage vessel. It's a sac that stores bile. So when bile leaves the liver through the hepatic ducts here, any bile that's not needed in the small intestine to break down fat gets stored through the cystic duct here into the gallbladder. The gallbladder will also concentrate the bile because it'll absorb water and ions out of its sac and has the ability to expand and then fold up again to accommodate the bile entering and leaving. Gallstones may appear, which are crystallized cholesterol caused by too much cholesterol or too few bile salts. There'll be pain in your upper right quadrant if gallstones occur, usually a sharp pain from contraction of the gallbladder on these hard crystals that are gallstones, especially after eating a fatty meal. Maybe 20 minutes later is when someone will get that gallstone pain. Now, if there are stones or gallstones, they can obstruct the flow of bile from the gallbladder, and that would cause a buildup of bile in the gallbladder and cause jaundice, which we call obstructive jaundice, because the bile salts and the pigments in bile, which is bilirubin, they'll build up in the blood, which would result in jaundiced skin. Of course, jaundice can result from liver disease as well, and lots of treatments here for gallstones, mainly with the intention of breaking down the stones with crystal dissolving drugs, ultrasound vibrations, laser vibrations, or sometimes surgery to remove the gallstones, or actually to remove the gallbladder itself. And our third accessory organ is the pancreas, which we see right here. Pancreas has two functions. We saw it in the endocrine system in chapter 16. We know that the hormones it produces and secretes work on blood sugar, insulin and glucagon. They're in the pancreatic islet cells, but as far as the digestive system goes, we're talking about the pancreas's exocrine function, which is to produce pancreatic juice, which are enzymes to break down all of our nutrients entering the small intestine. So here's our pancreas, and there's going to be a pancreatic duct which is going to join up with the bile duct from the liver and gallbladder. And they join up right here, which we call the hepatopancreatic ampulla, which is the opening here, and the sphincter, which will regulate the opening and closing of this ampulla so that the bile and the pancreatic juice can enter the small intestine, specifically the duodenum, when chyme enters it from the stomach. At the microscopic level, we have acinar cells, which we see here, that secrete the enzymes into these small ducts, which will eventually join up with other ducts and into this pancreatic duct. And you can see the pancreas produces quite a bit of pancreatic juice each day, up to 1.5 liters, which contain a watery, alkaline, pH 8 solution to neutralize the acidic chyme coming in from the stomach into the duodenum. There's electrolytes, primarily the bicarbonate ion, which is going to grab hydrogen ions to make the solution less acidic. But most important for digestion, the pancreas is going to secrete digestive enzymes into the small intestine, and we have an enzyme type for each nutrient. Proteases are secreted to break down proteins. They're secreted in inactive form because, remember, enzymes are proteins, and we don't want proteases destroying themselves because they happen to be proteins themselves, so they're secreted in inactive form, which get activated in the duodenum. Amylase is the enzyme in the pancreatic juice to break down carbohydrates. Lipase is for lipids, and nucleases for nucleic acids. So nice names to correspond with each of the 4 nutrients. So here we see some enzymes being released by the pancreas, the pancreatic juice, and the proteases that we said get released in inactive form. Here are 3 different types of proteases to break down proteins. Trypsinogen, remember the O-gen typically means inactive, trypsinogen. Chymotrypsinogen, and we see procarboxypeptidase. These are all inactive proteases that break down proteins. So when these enter the duodenum, we have cells along the lining, inner lining of our duodenum. These membrane-bound cells, upon arrival of these inactive proteases, will release something called which has to do with the small intestines, enteropepsidase. And what that does is combine with the inactive proteases and activates them. Now we have, from trypsinogen, we have trypsin, and so on and so forth with these other inactive forms, which can then break down the proteins coming in the chyme from our stomach. So we've mentioned this already, but here's the write-up to make it official. We have the pancreatic duct uniting with the bile duct from the gallbladder and the liver at the duodenum. So they'll come together right at this sphincter muscle, which we call the hepatopancreatic sphincter. And that sphincter is going to control entry of the pancreatic juice and the bile into the small intestine. Now, the control of that sphincter, as you can imagine, will either be control from hormones to stimulate its secretion or neural stimulation.